welcome back to The Writer's Dream. Today our guest author is Vonekham-Guthrie. She is the author of the nonfiction book Moving Beyond Here, and today she's going to tell us all about it. Welcome, Vonnie.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very honored to be here today.
Oh, we love that you're here. Tell us a little bit about your book.
Sure. The book is a self-help personal empowerment book, and it came out of conversations that I had with a lot of my colleagues and friends who were talking about changes and transitions in their life. So the book is focused on transition and leadership. And when I say leadership, it applies to everybody, because at some point in your life, whether your personal life, your professional life, your church life, you're going to lead in some capacity.
True.
So the ideas in the book come out of talks and stories that I've had with people that I've known over the years, and my own kind of challenges that I had in my career and my personal life. And how are you able to be strong in who you are when you're going through that transition and still walk through holding your head up high?
Can you tell us a little bit about your background, and maybe in terms of what are those things that happened in your own life that influenced this book?
Sure. So in a real quick nutshell summary, I'm a teen mom turned Ivy League graduate turned nonprofit executive.
My goodness.
So it's been quite a transition, quite a road and journey to where I am now in my career. And every step and every challenge, I would never ask for it not to have happened.
Right.
Because it created me into who I am now. And I think that's what a lot of people don't realize in their life. You go through a challenge, and that challenge strengthens you for the next opportunity, for the next success that comes around your path.
That's right. Now, did you find when you were talking to your colleagues and friends who had also overcome some challenges that there were some unique similarities between all of your stories?
Oh, absolutely. There are themes that run throughout the entire book, themes about self-esteem and themes about just being able to see your life beyond where you are. And that's kind of where the title came out of, Moving Beyond Here, was that a lot of people live in the moment and don't really think about what happens 5 years from now, or what's going to happen even a month from now. We take 16 weeks or whatever number of weeks to plan a vacation that only lasts 4 to 5 days, but we don't really think about our life and where we want our life to be. And once you have that forward thinking, you have a direction. I think, for me, I always have to have a direction. I'm very methodical in that way, in my work, with my family.
Right.
I always need, my husband says I'm the constant planner, but he's like, you'll plan a year in advance and I have no idea what's going on. So I'm like, sorry, just show up and smile. But I think it's so important, and for young people especially, that are coming out of high school, going into college, they just want to get that first job, but just don't really think about what that job is going to do for the next step in their life.
I agree. So would you say this book, who is the reader demographic for this book, would you say? Is it everyone? Were you thinking of a certain target audience?
It's really for anyone 17 and older.
Okay.
Because I think everyone goes through transitions at different points in their life. And the way the book was written is each chapter stands alone. So it really depends on where you are in your life as to whether that chapter relates to you or whether you're really ready to take in what is being taught to you.
Right.
Because sometimes you're just not mentally ready to understand what's happening. And if you're not, you're not going to get anything out of the chapter. Now,
when did you actually decide, though, to write the book, to say, you know what, I think there's a need for this and I think I'm the person to do it?
It's interesting. I actually went to school for creative writing. That was my degree at Columbia University, and did my preparation for my novel and was going to go travel to do the research because it was a novel based historically on my country, Laos, and also on my mother's coming to America story.
Oh, how interesting.
And then September 11th happened, and I said, there's no way I'm getting on a plane going to Laos right now. So it kind of got detoured, and then life happened. My godfather was murdered the year after. Goodness. And so my life took a couple of turns that were unexpected, but again, it brought me to where I am now. And then I had this experience, and I'm pretty spiritual, where I was driving home from work, and it was in early 2009. And I just had this overwhelming experience after having all these conversations with people. And the book just came into my head, and I pulled over on the side of the parkway, and I started writing the book. And I started writing and outlining the paragraphs and the chapters and the concepts I wanted to bring out.
Wow.
And as I was doing that, I went home and I said, okay, I've always said I was going to write a book, and my husband's like, you keep saying you're going to write a book. It's been You graduated from college back in 2011. There's still no book. What's going on? I'm like, 4 kids and work and everything else. I'm like, you got to find the time.
Right.
So I forced myself. I got up every morning at 4 in the morning, and I would write from 4 to 6.
Yeah.
And that was my time.
I've done that.
And my kids don't get up till 6 until I wake them up and get them ready for school, get them out the door, and then head out to work. So I did that for about 4 to 5 months. I wrote the book.
That's
it
wonderful.
was really quickly, yeah.
Wow. So when you wrote the book, were you still basing it on that outline that you had done in the car when you pulled over? Did that change at all throughout the course of the book?
Some of the chapter titles changed, but the concept stayed the same. And at the end, I added a chapter just because I felt it had to be talked about because of what I do for a living. I believe a great deal in giving back and being humble and thankful for the blessings that you have. I work in nonprofit fundraising and development, and we're always thanking people, and we're always appreciative of everything someone can give to us, because they don't have to. No one has to. You didn't have to ask me to be here today, right? So, and we have mutual friends and just great people, and being around great people and being able to experience that. So, I forgot my train of thought, but the book really came out of that idea, and you have to bring me back to where we were.
I often ask authors what motivates them to write, but I think in this particular case, the subject matter itself, was that motivation enough to get you up at 4 o'clock in the morning to do the writing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I guess my way of writing is that I tend to, I'm very visual, so I actually close my eyes and just type and kind of see the stories in my head. Because the book is principles connected to vignettes.
Okay.
So each chapter has a series of vignettes that deals with a certain lesson or a certain concept or a certain principle. But there's an overall principle to each chapter that binds it all together. Just because I really wanted to talk to people at different places in their life. Like, for example, the first chapter is the acronym HERE, which is Hindrances Endangering Reasonable Elevation. And the reason I wrote that was that I think we have external hindrances and internal hindrances that prevent us from going forward in certain things that we want to do. Everyone has a dream and a desire, but they're not able to get through that block or whatever that personal, whatever blockage it is, or external blockage. It may be that, you just don't have a car, so you can't get to the job interview. Right. Or you don't have a phone, so you can't make that phone call. Or you had something happen in your past where someone told you couldn't possibly be accomplished, and yet you can't get beyond that. For me, when I was in college, I went to community college and then won this wonderful scholarship to Columbia University, and just so very blessed for that. And the professor that headed the honors school at that community college, and I'll leave the name out of here for now, because I'll leave her name out, but the community college is excellent, Nassau Community College. That was where I was really inspired as a writer to become a writer. She said to me that I would never graduate because I had a child, and she kind of did, sometimes people, they think of what they know. And she kept saying to me, well, you go to work, you go to school, you have children to take care of them. There's no way you're graduating from college with anything above a C. She verbally said that to me. Wow. And I looked at her and I said, well, test me on that. I'm one of those people that if you say I can't do it, I'm going to try to get away with it.
Right, I'm the same way.
So I said, okay, let me be in the program. She didn't want me to be in the honors program. She said, you're going to fail, you're not going to make it. I said, give me a semester, let me be in the program, and the story's in the book. And if I don't get anything less than a 3.75, kick me out. But the GPA was only 3.5, and I did that on purpose. Right, right. So I ended up graduating at the top 5% of my class.
Good for you, and, good for you.
She didn't say anything else to me after that, but she wouldn't write my letter of recommendation for Columbia.
Why, though? I don't understand. That's
because I proved her wrong. So it was an ego thing.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. So, but, it happens, but the other thing, too, is I think a lot of young people, and I've seen this coming from an Ivy League school, and I mentor a lot of the young students as they're graduating out, and I also mentor my scholars that are under the program that I was under when I was there. And they have this thought that, oh, I have an Ivy League degree, or I have a certain level degree, I can go out and make $100,000. Right. And it's like, well, or I'm going to be a consultant. I remember one girl coming up to me at a networking event. She goes, oh, I said, what do you want to do with your life? And she had to be all of 22. She goes, I want to be a consultant. I said, really? Well, what's your expertise? Oh, I've never had a job, but I have an Ivy League degree. And I just looked at her and I said, that's not going to happen, sweetheart. And I kind of talked to her a little, but that's the expectation. You know, you have to pay a certain number of dues before you're able to excel to a certain level in your life.
Right.
And I think as writers, we do that as well. I think that's the whole rejection process that we go through.
Oh, yes.
You know,
oh, yes.
How hard is your skin really? How much do you believe in what you're writing about?
Absolutely.
That you're going to fight for it.
And believe in yourself, too.
Absolutely, absolutely. I know with the book, I did speak to a number of big-name publishers, and I'll leave their names out of it. And we went back and forth with regards to them taking over the book. And I really felt that I decided to self-publish on purpose because I wanted control over the marketing and how the book was put out there.
Right.
I didn't want it just to be about money, because I really wanted people to improve their lives with this book, and that was my hope. So I actually went through the college system and through my own public speaking engagements to really bring notice to the book and to get people to want to read the book. And you know, all the other stuff is kind of icing on the cake. You know, all the other things that have come across my way as a result of that. So
when you finished the book, you first decided to just talk to a few traditional publishers? The book was done at that point?
As I was in the process, about 3/4 of the way through, I have a number of friends and family that work in that world, and they had me sit with a couple of folks. And when we talked about it, they loved the concept. They thought it was, you know, a great concept. And at the time, with the economy, that it was shifting because it came out summer of 2010.
Okay.
So, and they were like, oh, the summer read, and people could read it as they're getting ready to reapply to jobs and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Because there's a whole segment on applying to jobs and how do you do that. But I just wasn't happy with what I was hearing. And it was more sort of like this mass funnel out system where I didn't really get a chance to really touch my readers in the way I wanted to. Right. And I wasn't happy with it. And, you know, I'm kind of circling back because the second book, I'm looking at who I want to partner with because I don't have time to do the legwork that I did with this book. Right, right. Because of my career where it is now. But the second book is more about my field and how I'm able to be successful in my field because the field has shifted so much in the last 5 years with Madoff and all the great things that have happened. Yeah. So raising money is a little bit different.
So it's another nonfiction book?
Yes, it would be. It's a career-related book.
Okay.
For someone that's interested in getting into this field of nonprofit development and what do you do to do that and what are the shifts and changes that have happened to make you successful? Because it's a pretty high-pressure job. But I love it. You know, I haven't had a lot of problems with it, so I've been pretty successful with it in my career.
You know, it's interesting, though. You said you have a degree in creative writing.
Correct.
But you mention that there are vignettes in this book.
Absolutely.
And I was wondering if you were sort of channeling that creative writing instruction and background that you had to form those. I mean, was there any similarity that you found between the creative writing that you'd done in school and this book?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. My husband always says, I write the way people think. So if you've read the book, a lot of the stories are very emotional. Like I had my 2 teenagers read some segments of the book, and they couldn't get past certain stories because they were just so emotional. I write about, like in the one story, I write about my godfather's murder. And that was really intense for my kids to read because they didn't know what I had went through at that time. You know, he was the minister, the Catholic minister that was murdered in Limbrook some years back.
Oh my goodness.
And we'll just say the press was pretty relentless. And we were kind of his adoptive family. He actually brought us to America. It was one of his projects when he first became a priest, and we were the chosen family. Oh, and it was just very hard because I ended up becoming the spokesperson for the family because I was the educated one. You know, both my sisters didn't make it to college, and I was the one that kind of made the dream happen. Right. Quote unquote. So it was really difficult, but kind of how I found out how he died, how I dealt with my parents' grief, my mother's grief, my sister's grief, but still had to maintain a certain role for the press. Right. And to ensure that they didn't inhibit or hurt the family, because the press was so interested into why was he chosen to be murdered. And he was just a wonderful man that just was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And the press really wanted to kind of crucify him in a sense, and was trying to, at the time, the Catholic Church was being slammed with all the pedophilia. So they were trying to say that that's why the young man killed him. Nothing like that at all.
Did you find then the process to be sort of therapeutic for you, writing this
Oh,
as sort of
absolutely.
as a way to get your story told?
Oh,
Right.
absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. It was writing that particular vignette was very difficult. A lot of tears
Right.
as I was writing, just because I had to think through my process in healing. Because it took me anyway, a good 2 years to really be able to even drive past the church where he was murdered, to be able to, really imagine a world without him, because he is such a big part of my world. He's the reason I learned how to read. He taught me how to read. He's the reason I love, literature. He's the reason I'm so hard-headed, and the reason that I won't take no for an answer, and I think that's why I'm good at what I do for a living. But he really molded me into who I am as a person, and he was my dad, at the end of the day.
Right.
He brought me and my mother and my sisters to America, and at the time we thought my father was murdered because he was in the military, and that's another story for another day. But he's alive, and that's in the book. But he really became like our adoptive father. Took us under his wing, did the whole Disney stuff, and the Islanders. We got, we were forced to go to Jets games and freeze in the bleachers. And if you weren't a Jets fan, you were walking home. But just a wonderful, wonderful man. Just a really wonderful man, and didn't have to do what he did.
Right, right. Did you ever experience? Was it always easy to write? I mean, you said it was difficult in terms of your connection to the story, but did you ever experience times where you just couldn't write? I mean, did you wake up, you hit your alarm at 4 o'clock, your snooze, and you got up and you sat down and the words weren't coming? Did you ever have those moments like writer's block?
Not for this particular book,
Okay.
but for other things that I've written, absolutely. I think like I said, I'm very methodical, so I'll go back and work on something that I'm motivated to write,
Right.
or that's more technical, where it's not about being creative, but more about taking what you have and then making it work together. And that's what I do as a grant writer and stuff like that. So I get to kind of field both worlds.
Right.
So I'll just jump back into that until something hits me, and then I'll go back into the other world. For me, one of my biggest issues with creative writing is that I tend to write too much, and I have to scale it down.
Right.
So I'm constantly going back and rewriting to make it sound more crisp instead of being overly fluffy.
Right. Right.
I can make anything sound beautiful and put 20,000, adjectives and all that great stuff. But that was my big challenge in school. Was like, wow, you have all this content.
Right.
Ream it in and focus it. And, and I've gotten better at that over the years.
You know, it's funny, I have the completely opposite problem.
Oh, really?
I tend to write like the bare bones. I get through the story, the plot, and then I have to go back and I have to layer and layer and layer to create the story and build it from there. Yeah, so it's interesting that everyone has a different process.
I think it's really what you're writing about as to whether, because I have other things that I write about, especially for grant writing. I do the same thing, bare bones and then add on.
Right.
I think it's a matter of what is in front of you, and whether, for me, whether it's something that really connects to me on a personal level. If it's something that really connects to me, I could write about it all day long, as long as no one bothers me and I don't hear mom,
right.
From the Family Guy, I hear mom, okay. And I used to have a sign on my door, like, mom's working, office is closed. And the kids got used to that after a while, but, now the it's funny, they say I thought when your kids got older, you had less work. And I have 2 teenagers now. I'm like, I have more work because I'm the human taxi. So
I know.
Finding moments in between taxiing them around and always having, thank God for laptops.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't be able to do what I do.
It's tough. It's tough.
It's not like when we were growing, when I was growing up, when you were growing up, when we had to sit in front of a desktop, or you had to sit on a typewriter.
Yep.
And my kids are like, corrective ink, what is that?
Right, I know. Backspace.
Like, oh, please delete it. Please delete it. I don't want to put white out on it and make it look ugly and clumpy. But it's, the kids, they have it so good now, And
I know.
I can't write freehand. I have to write on the computer.
Oh, me too. I have friends that write freehand. I don't know how they do it.
I do it. I have, I think as a writer, we all have a manual book where we actually have to write just to write some things.
Right.
Like ideas that kind of come to you. And I keep a book by the side of my bed because I often have, things come to me in my sleep, and I'll just jot it down and then go back to it in the morning when I wake up. But
I used to do that. Now I use my phone.
Oh,
Now
really?
I'm constantly emailing myself from my phone.
Oh,
It's
how
just
funny is
easier.
that?
It just keeps it all in the same folder. And I used to have bits of paper everywhere. And
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I'm trying to minimize. We have a bad paper problem in my house.
Us too. I think we all do.
Like the paper room, the door just gets shut. But yeah, it's I think we're always as writers, we always have things coming in our head and
Yeah.
concepts and ideas, and then we see something. I'm a big observer of people, so I'll see someone, I go, I wonder why she chose to wear that,
Right.
especially in Manhattan.
Right.
Forget about. I was in Manhattan the other week, and I was telling my husband, I was coming out of a meeting, and this woman was walking down Fifth Avenue, stark naked with nothing but heels on and a purse.
Really?
And she was just so comfortable, and I'm like, okay, what statement is she trying to make? I know she's not Madonna.
Right.
So I'm like, interesting. And it was funny because a man ran to the police car that was parked right in front of me as I was trying to get a taxi. And he was like, oh my gosh, go arrest her. And the police didn't do anything. And I'm like, And they were both men, so I'm like, I'm wondering why they didn't do anything.
Right. Oh, that's too much.
But, beautiful woman just walking down Fifth Avenue, just enjoying her day. Like nothing was bothering her.
Oh,
It was a beautiful day, too. It wasn't hot, so she wasn't sweating. But stuff like that, and you go,
Right, you got to get it down.
What's her story?
Right.
Like, why would she do that? Or is she making a statement? Because, some people do stuff like that to make a statement about cancer or a statement about something else, Why would you do that? Why would you put yourself out there like that?
Right.
That stuff always intrigues me. Like, even I know in what I do for work, I always wonder why would this one person give, a six-figure gift to this agency and not to this agency?
Right.
What do they do better? But they do the same work. Why? What's the reasoning for it?
Right.
And kind of peeling that apart
Those
to
are great
understand
questions.
it.
Yeah.
And I always challenge. I have great rapport with a lot of my funders, and I used to do foundation advisement many years ago, and it's really interesting to hear both sides of the table. I think as a writer and as an editor, you see things in a different way because I've edited for other people. And they're like, well, why would you cut that out? I'm like, because I don't get it. What's the path? And as a writer, I think we're always looking for the path. Like, how do I get from point A to point Z?
Exactly.
And make it coherent so that someone who's a layperson who's just reading for enjoyment can really understand what I was thinking when I wrote it.
Right.
And why I would put this particular story in and not this story.
Right.
And I think that was a big part for me because it had vignettes in it. Which stories do I put in under what tabs?
Yeah.
Because,
what do I leave out? But what's really interesting is we're the only ones who really know what was left out.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Then I'm like, for another day.
Right,
exactly. You put it in your archive,
For later
your little
pile.
drawer for the next book, and I have so much stuff, and you go back to stuff you wrote. I do this all the time.
Me too.
I go back and read the stuff that I wrote 10 years. I'm like, what was I thinking when I wrote that? It makes no sense. But you grow and you learn your voice. And every writer has a real unique voice, and I think that's one of the things that bothered me about traditional publishing is that sometimes you have these great voices that don't get heard because they're so far to one side. And
that's a big criticism, of the traditional publishing.
And there's a lot of voices out there that have something to say, and there's people out there that want to hear it. But if they don't have the venue and the space to do that, it gets muddled and lost.
Well, how did you find the self-publishing process? What did you think of it?
You have to be on top of them. I'll tell you that much. I'm a little upset with them right now. So because there are some issues right now with the shipping of books and stuff like that. So that's frustrating because they do everything in-house. So when people are ordering and they're not getting their books, I hear back from my team, and I have to then figure out a way to make up for that. Because I think it's a reflection on me, even though it's the publisher. As the writer, I take responsibility for it.
Exactly, of course.
So I think with that, you have to be very on top of them. You have to check everything that they do, even though they say, oh, we have full editorial services for you. As a writer, you may envision a certain chapter or a certain sentence being in one tone, and then they'll shift it.
Right.
Because they don't know what the intention is behind that sentence. Like, I'm very big in what I do on certain words and the placement of words, the difference between of and the or for. And
yeah.
It's so important.
I know.
It makes a difference.
Some people don't understand, but it does make a difference.
Absolutely. And when every word counts, especially in a book, every word should have power behind it. So, being on top of that and just constantly being in communication with them. And that's why I was saying I'd rather do traditional, even though I have some issues, just because I don't have the time to be as on top of them as I was with this. I took time off from work just to specifically, I hate that word, to focus on the book, because I really felt like it was something that needed to be out there at the time that it came out. And, you know, we had some delays. Originally, it was supposed to be launched in February of 2010, and we had a big launch thing at CW Post, and then there were issues with the publisher. And I said, oh, it's all right. You know, I really believe that everything has its time. And if something doesn't, like even this morning, you know, getting lost and putting the wrong thing in the GPS, I'm like, you know, there must be a reason that, you know, I have to be either the second or third person. But, you know, I really think that there's a time for everything, and it's about seizing that time when you have it and really taking full advantage of what's in front of you. So with that, you know, I really find that people don't realize how many opportunities are lost because you're looking in the wrong direction. And I talk about this in the book. You know, if you're constantly looking forward and not looking 360 degrees around you, you really can't see what other connections that are to be made.
Well, let me ask you this. I'd like to end my interviews with a quote from Oprah, who famously said that there's no such thing as luck without preparation, number one, and two, a moment of opportunity. And I would like to know if you agree or disagree with that statement as far as your own success and your own life. Do you believe in luck?
I don't believe in luck.
Okay.
Even though I'm Asian, people say, oh, you should believe in luck. That's a big Asian thing. But I agree with some of what she says. I think that we create our own opportunity. I'm a big networker, so I always see it's kind of putting it out there to as many people as possible to see what opportunity can come before you, and then moving forward with it.
Well, Phani, thank you so much for coming today. And the book is called Moving Beyond Here. You can buy it online.
Yes.
And thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time on The Writer's Dream. Thank you.